Okay, so let's start this practice today with our props behind us, right? So the prop settings are, so you have your bolster horizontal, and the blankets or towels that are behind that, that proportion will be dependent on your comfort level. So since it's restorative and the emphasis in the beginning is widening the ribs and the breathing spaces, let's get right into this, where we're sitting with our pelvis pretty snug up next to the bolster. You're going to place a block under the back of your pelvis, so you do a little bit of a bridge tilt to get there. You could try using the ball instead, if it's has a little bit of give to it and cushiness to it, if you have one of those. And as you lower back, I'm trying to let the lower ribs, as I lower my head down, feel as if they basically umbrella open. So you're trying to get the ribs spatially to open and gradually keep opening with this first horizontal chest opener. So I'm going to set my feet so they're wide enough and they're turned in enough to rest my core organs, my corgans, and then I'll place a sandbag across my upper-ish ribs. You know, it's not up at your collarbones, but it feels upperish right now, okay? And from upperishness, we keep going back to maintain support of our head on the blankets. And then you have the option to hold your belt and activate your arm muscles, or to let your arms start with simply touching open and down to the floor. Whichever feels right for you. Maybe holding and gripping and pulling something feels a little too much. We can try it in a minute or so if you like to pause and practice that experience of widening the ribs and the breathing spaces. And we unite our focus in the beginning of practice as much as at the ending. So feeling that awareness of your practice, of others in practice, and supported. And you're quite supported with props. So the legs could stay bending, or they could extend straight forward with the feet reaching. If the back agrees. If no back is in agreement, then you come back to the knees bending. I want to encourage you to emphasize your ribs and the expansion. Not so much how deep your back bend can be, but how the expansion at the upper torso. So with the breath receiving in through your nose. Remember, it's one breath. And then on the exhale, empty the lungs. And start noticing if your breath is felt when it goes in the front of the body only, like in what you feel viscerally as breathing into your face, right? Clearly it's front. Or if you can feel the breath actually moving across the chest where the sand is. So I'm trying to actually lift my sandbag with my breathing stretch. And then on my exhale out of the mouth, then hopefully my sand is lowering, and then I'm massaging into the breathing muscles, right? The diaphragm, everything's getting a stretch inside. You might take a hold of your belt, give a few moments of this experience of activation of your arms, wide hold, so it's quite easy in the shoulders. but waking up that blood flow even more. So elbows are wide. Remember, you can bring the hands in closer on the belt. I'm keeping it as simple as possible right now, so I can feel the outline of my breathing. So I feel a little bit fuller and bigger. With about 4 more breaths. Legs are straight or bending. You can change the leg variation, and you can change the hand adjustment on the belt closer or farther out. Now, with a sense of place in the front body, opening up the front spaces, we'll keep it very clear and simple. We're going to go to the side spaces. So letting go of anything you're grasping onto and removing your sand over to the left would be ideal. And then as you move the knees into their bending pattern, and we start the path of hands can touch right to the front of the hip bones, like your fingertips would touch. Move your right knee in towards your core, just bending it, lifting the foot. Alternate to the left side, so feeling how the hips kind of switch. And it's its own walking pattern on your back. It's a good place to develop core integration into your structure of movement. I don't think we would walk this slow and dissect our walking experience when we're on our feet, but on our spine and our back, we can feel where we're even. I want you to notice the last set on the side that you're drawing in, feel the opposite hip and the connection into that foot. Feel your back pressing into the props, and then alternate foot presses down. Opposite leg draws in. Be curious here if you want to keep your hands onto the hip points or stretch both arms back. So working with that core team, right, of your abdominal muscles. And now as we sweep the leg down, we're going to push into both feet, lift up your hips a tad, scoot your block over to the side, and roll into your left side beam on the bolster. Okay, let it be simple here. So when we're leaning into our side, you can place a block or ball on the inside of that right leg and explore any weight on your right side. So it could be on that dip between your ribs and your hip, the rib dip, okay? So I can place that across to support. Left arm is between the props, reaching through, right arm reaches open, and then sort out your movement opportunity here. So get a little bit free play. Open the upper arm, feel the contours of the waist on the bottom and the top. Let your eyes maybe close from top to bottom. And feature sensation of movement versus always sensation of breath. See if movement precedes breath or breath precedes movement when you're practicing. Or just practice. That's the most essential thing these days, is to get this time for practice. There's time, but finding that time and making it. So when you're opening that right arm, feel the sleeve, noticing the response in your shoulder. And you decide whether that upper arm is going to reach for maybe a block overhead or behind your back. I'm going to move my block to the mid second setting, or it's behind your back. And this feels helpful. I do know that my shoulders can work with moving back more often. Now, if it's a little tender and you want to keep that position, emphasize letting your head relax into the blanket. And so the brain may try to kind of burrow into the blanket. It's like if you were to push down with your brain, but feel if you can let the weight of your head create traction for your neck. Good. Relax your face space. And opening front space, side space, and also relaxing your face space. Now, if you want to sample moving your sand a little higher, a little lower, give it a few moments of exploration before shifting the pose. Notice if you feel the weight of the hip bone or the weight of the shoulders. And then the ribs are in a light bit of traction with the bolster. Now with another couple breaths, we'll keep it so simple that we do a little more than scratch the surface of these important poses. But we feel the linking of them, the connecting layer from one to the next. Now start to move the right arm so it's down besides the left. It's maybe a little bit above the left arm. Now you could keep your sand on. You might stay with that and see what organically happens to it when you start to move towards sitting. And you might feel if your hip can actually move it back off. See what happens when you get some traction in your waist. Okay. So as I push down into my hands, I orient myself to my bolster, and I'm going to reach back and get my blocks, and the belt is an option on this pose. We're going to practice reclining bound angle, so we're going to tip the bolster up so you have a little bit of a piked position with the bolster. And when you turn forward, take an opportunity so you're right in front of your bolster to move your belt under your feet and place it right to the center-ish of your feet or the ball of the feet. And as you adjust your arms to bending and by your sides, feel your core arch, like you're moving your chest forward. Feel your core in neutral and feel it rounding, or your spine rounding, your back muscles. So I want you to start with that mild rounding and then pull your feet towards you. This is good for me. I can feel my core starting to contract. Okay, so I have a contracted core. Now if I lift up my feet, I start to feel it in myriad of places. I can't even explain it, but I feel it. So when I push my feet up, and I'm at a little more of a right angle, it's surely helpful. And if I push my legs straight as they'll go, then my back is responding. So feel if you can get your hands closer towards your feet, holding your belt, unless you want to hold your feet. And then as you feel your body lean back, see if you can lift up your heart. Yeah, ridiculously so. Now feel if you can impress yourself with your ability to push through your feet. This is the time of your life to impress yourself here. And then feeling if your heels push, it's all for you. Okay. Now my legs feel a little ripple effect. It's certainly steeping in my whole body. Nothing's left out here. I'm awake. Okay. So feel the knees bending. There are things that will kind of wince on this one that won't feel like it's all easy. It's kind of a building block for strength. So as I lower down my feet, I'm going to take the belt off and I'm going to move into that pose I mentioned, Supta Baddha Konasana. And so I sit right up next to my bolster and I place a couple blocks, one under each leg. Now when I lean my weight back, I like to put sand across my feet. It's nice and grounding. So placing, and as I lean back my spine, simplify your spine in its natural arch now. There's no bolster on the sides of it. It's on the very narrow angling. And feel where your shoulder blades move back to your bolster. The opposite of this previous core strengthening pose, but it's core strengthening on its own. So you might find adjusting your blocks is essential here. Feel the hips opening. And let that be purely the focus. Arms out. Let's spend about a minute in this setting. Reclining. Giving the shoulders some time to center back. And have purpose, the shoulders to move back towards your bolster. Right, if the inhale is kind of puttering into the heart space, see if you can get a little fuller breath, prepping our body. If the shoulders are feeling tight, just in general right now, I recommend that you take a hug. Right arm over left, reach around to your, wherever the hands land on the back. Instead of trying to put them high up or low, feel where they naturally land. And then try to squeeze that part of your back with your fingers. Try to get in there, squeezing. A little bit of a massage with your fingertips. If it's rather sore, right, see if you can keep the circulation going. Instead of squeezing, you might feel your fingers in that space and kind of rub around small little circles. Now change the arm crossing if you're practicing this. If you're passing on this hug option, you can certainly bring your arms by the sides and let them relax. So get a feel here. Maybe you reach up to actually the feeling of the shoulders versus your back. Okay, now this time we let the arms uncross and we feel both hands uniting, interlacing your fingers, stretch your arms straight back. Bring your knees towards each other so you feel the bottoms of the feet under the sand, if the sand decided to stay. Let your arms relax the clasp, and then we'll bring the right foot up and cross that ankle to the left knee. And I'm just going to let the sand be where it is right now and see how this goes, because I find this a little curious for my balance. So if you have a block, place that beside the left hip. If you have a ball, use the ball. So the ball is right besides, it's just below my hip, attached to my upper outer left thigh, the trochanter greater. And I'm going to lean my left thigh into the ball. I'm not so impressed with the sandbag. So as I lean into the ball, I'll reach for my right knee with the left hand. All right, so you've got to kind of explore sometimes. So feeling the right hip. Oh yeah, feel the right hip. Maybe the buttock is what you feel. So when you're pulling with that left hand, let the right shoulder relax. Breathe slow. And try to empty low in the belly. So inhale, filling. exhale, feel the belly squeeze towards the spine. Now as we shift to the other side, we take the time to let go of the knee and bring that right knee back to its center, uncross, left foot to right knee, move the ball to the right side, and getting busy with that second side, I'm going to feel where the center line is in my belly towards my heart. And most of that getting into that moment is honoring where I decided to stay in my pose first. So I maintain the balance of my spine back and right hand to left knee. So feeling that pull and trying to let go of attachment to comparing the sides. Just noticing, be in the moment, feel right now. And the stillness can be a little challenge, right, with a practice, still practice, restorative. So let the breath be your constant companion. It's rather essential. So a few more moments. So the feel of the hand holding the knee and the ability to let the right leg kind of mush the ball, right? You're trying to swoosh that ball. Smush the ball. Yeah, if you smush into it and you kind of move a tad over the ball and down into it, you'll find that that connective tissue starts to get some opening, some space, especially with a wider ball that has a responsive surface. So just rolling on them is good medicine. Let go of the grip of the knee, and we're going to go to center, uncross. Good news, we're going to side sage with the right knee over, left knee drops in. I'm going to lift up and put the ball on the inside of my left leg or a block, and then turn the bolster. Reach for my sand, place it up on my left side, and then as I lean down to this other side, feel where the reach is. Now with my back towards you, you might find some noticeable change with the experience of the back body also receiving that circulation and the side zone. So find where your creativity personally comes in, and the block overhead might be essential for you. Yeah, it's sometimes essential on this one. Right, the block is an essential service for some of us, that we need that overhead. Otherwise, the arm gets a little tender and raw all the way to this bicep tendon. So feel if you reach, and if you don't want that version, bring your arm open. If it's pretty tender, right, where there's attachment, then bring the arm down so you're relaxing. Okay, sometimes enough pressure is you're receptive to it. It feels like you're doing something. But if it never fades, that intensity, you might want to address that by being a little more gentle. Okay, so it could be arm over, it could be arm back. You might find turning your head and resting it into the blanket is helpful. And give a few moments to feel the sides spatially widen, elongate, and receiving the movement of the breath. So we're starting to move a little bit. We're going to start getting some more movement of ribs, the elasticity of the ribs and the back spaces. So this is a good time to start. If your knee needs support and doesn't feel good, remember you can always bring your knees closer together. Let's take a couple more breaths here. Arm is over, arm is down, arm is back. Whatever it is, your arm is on. Okay, you want to keep that arm in a comfortable enough attachment. Now moving your hip back, sand is going to shift over to the side. This time, interesting, we're going to come around and want you to actually shift so that your bolster is in the side. Have it so it's easy for you to get a hold of pretty soon in a little while. It's going to be a while till we get that bolster back. But we'll take a blanket perhaps under our knees. If you're on a carpet and it feels comfortable enough without a blanket, you might prefer not to. It's up to you. I think it's just good, responsible support for my knees. And then scatter the other blanket away. Blocks are an essential service for you right now. Okay, so you want those in. Now I'm going to widen out my blocks to the sides of my mat. We're going to start with a sequencing. You can see parts of me maybe. Sequencing of cat and child and up and down dog. So feeling your fabric of stretch with your hands. Feel the mat, feel the hands open, and wide cat pose. So as you move your belly organs in and up, rounding, and feel the weight of your head dangle. Just let it be that. My head dangles. My belly is moving in and up. So when your head dangles, your belly moves in and up. That's the key here. Toes relaxed. Okay. Now as you reach your hips back towards your feet, you're going to let your seat reach back, like your sitting bones kind of flare, right? So we'll take this in cycles. So we're going to come up, we're going to round the back through cat, we're going to move all the way into an up dog. Inhale. And then exhale, we'll come back, toes under. And you can either push back to a child's pose or a down dog. Okay. So try to let that be a pretty wide stance with your hands and feet. Fairly. Stretch the chest. You know, when you come down with the knees, come into cow. So that would be arching the spine. Exhale into cat. We're starting to get coordinated here. Inhale back to child. And exhale, let your breath become natural and relaxed. Inhale into up dog. Let your spine round. Let your toes stay hooked under now. And lift the heart space. Now as you come back, feel how your hips move. Now, if your spine is doing all the arching, I want you to try to work with reaching back with your seat. Feel the hinge at your hips, and then lifting up your knees, and feel that purposeful hinge and the bending of the knees, like you're about ready to pounce. You're almost ready to jump forward, but you'll resist. Now with the heels reaching back and down, carefully craft, this time lowering into the knees and rounding the back into cat. Chin towards chest this time. Really bring your chin in. Okay, pause for a moment in table. Okay, let's take a child's pose that is to open up the knees a little bit wider than the ribs. And then when you reach back into your hips, actually we might use our bolster on this one. So my forehead is on my bolster. And if you like to have a blanket on top of your calves, grab it. Okay. You could also put your sandbag on your calves. Okay. So my arms are forward, holding on lightly to the bolster. Forehead down, and my spine and my neck in traction. So let your neck feel a full moment of traction. And I would think a full moment would be about 3 breath cycles. Gives you an opportunity. Now hands down, come up, shift any of your props, and we're going to take the right leg to stretch back, and the knees together, right leg back, so the toes are under, and turn the right foot so the inside of the foot is on the flooring and the right arm moves upping, okay? So feel where the mid-spine, right, is working with the upper body balance. The arm up top could reach over the right side of your face. Okay, few more breaths, but feeling where there's stability through that left arm. Keep it very specific here. You want to feel where your side is reaching. And then when you are lowering, you're going to keep it simplified. Knee touch down to left, left foot straight back. Yep, keep the reach through the back leg. Pivot the left foot so the inside of that foot is down and you're reaching your left arm up. So turn through the waist. Try to feature moving through your shoulders, extending through your left arm. Okay, as you recall, breathing. If it's a little stuffy with your breath, feeling the permission to let your exhalation lengthen. And then lower the left hand. Now find a block for your hand, place it mid-height, pivot the left foot so the toes are under, right hand reaches to a block, and we'll step the left foot up to the left side of our block, outside the left block under the left hand, and guide the right leg back so the knee is touching down. Now if it's sensitive, you could work with your knee a little bit up. Okay, you could move the blanket if it feels like you need a little bit more cushion. But in this gecko pose, we've got our back foot hooked under. That would be ideal. And try to keep it kind of bare bones with the support under your hip right now on the left side. Try to keep it very simple on the reach of the hips. 2 more breaths, pacing it out. Now, if that right hip, you can sense the kind of, if there was a pointer at the very top of the quadricep connecting into the hip, kind of flexor zones. Let's scoot the left foot inside that block. So now you have a foot between 2 blocks. And we're leaning forward into the lunge. And then we'll lean back into a reverse lunge. Toes up, left foot, lean back. Okay, try it without the knee on the blanket. Forward lunge, knee is up, and then backward lunge, legs are extending, knee is off the blanket. Feel the toes on that left foot, flexing the foot. I don't think the toes flex the foot, but you get the idea. And then go back forward and alternate these 2 patterns. So you have something that you're focusing on with rhythm in your lower body. And notice your upper body is a stabilizer, right? So that your lower body can get some exercise. So deepen this back leg stretch for a moment. Stay with the hips up. Lower your back heel towards the floor. Give it a try. And your left foot could be down. You can have the toes down. You can have the foot flexed and feel the weight of your upper body lean into the leg. As long as the left leg is in a tiny bit of a micro bend. You can put your blocks up, adjust your foot down, then put your blocks up, and then lift back up. That seems a little better for me, a little bit higher, supportive of my back. Now with the left foot toes down, bend the knee, and place your left hand and block on the inside of your foot. Okay, give it a moment for balance, or a lack of it sometimes on this one. And then I'm going to coordinate my hips. So I'm going to move my right hip back. I'm going to take my blocks over to towards my right, and actually towards the screen now. So I'm turning, so I'm in a wide stance. Feet are parallel to begin. I do a little better with toes inwards, but you might have to process that with your knees because they're processing this. So you feel the freedom to stretch your arms farther forward, so you're in a wide stance and a reach with your hands so your spine can stretch. Okay, you can be here. You can also bring your blocks in closer and try to get your elbows on them. That might be worth it, right? So that your shoulders don't have so much pressure, but you're strengthening around them. Head down. And if you're in this shape with your elbows down, I encourage you to keep the energy of the legs pulling up. So instead of hanging in the joints, you're stimulating the blood flow around the joint. So it's almost as if you're drawing up your kneecaps and you're sucking up the quadriceps, so both sides. Unless you like to go kind of alternate the quadriceps. Winking quadriceps. Okay. A few more moments here. Knees are in a slight bend. And I could have my blocks forward or closer, and it really is up to you. Completely up to you. Feel the legs reaching. Since you're able to explore your home practice, you certainly could bend your knees and alternate kind of these inner leg lunges side to side. Might feel good, moving your hips. Just go for it. But feel this wide stance. So I'm trying to encourage us to feel some evenness in our tissues. Now, when we move our blocks back in close to the mat, feel your hands right under your shoulders. Now we're going to twist, so we're going to move our right inner thigh to stretch completely and left arm to lift up. So turn, left arm turns and opens, chest rotates. Now lower that hand down and switch sides. See if you can meet the experience of the inner thigh stretching. The left inner thigh, like feeling how the expansiveness of your foot. It's limited though, right? It's not like you have a webbed foot that you can span open and feel up into the leg. So do the best you can with connecting. And then as you lower down, bend the knees, be kind of casual at this one. Walk your blocks over to your right foot. So I go to my right foot now, and I'm going to observe the same balance I did last time. And exactly the same. So I'm going to scoot my blankie back because I'm using one and my left knee is on it. And my blocks are on the inside, and I'm going to scoot my right foot open out. So turning out this right foot, it's rotating my thigh outwards. Right? The foot is actually rotating my thigh. So it starts at my base and it moves into the inner thigh tissues. So as I lower down on my hands or my elbows, yeah, it's tempting to get a bolster under the left thigh on this one. So feel what it's like when you have a little bit more stretch without that. Yeah, if it's a real intensity for you, you might need to go down a little lower on your blocks. Doesn't mean it will be easier, okay? But you might feel that you're giving up the pressure in your shoulder and your neck that way. I think you'd want to give that up. Not that we want to hold that one. Feel the thigh really stretch. Back quad. Now with the expansiveness in your mid to lower back, with the foot turned out, feel when your left foot, the toes are relaxed. Feel when the toes are hooked under. Okay, and as I proceed to move up, I'm going to walk the right foot toe in, toe heel to the center of my blocks. And I'm going to progress my way in towards lunge. So you want to keep everything balancing the weight even on your hands. And then when I lean back, toes up, right foot, reverse lunge. You really explore what it is to actually move your head as close to the right leg as you can. If this feels kind of interesting, you might stay with it. If the cueing is changing, you don't have to change with me. So inhaling forward and exhaling back. Take time, breathe. Yeah, it's nice to get these full body stretches. Now, in the proceeding into this, you can start lifting your back knee. And stay with it up off of the blanket for a few flows of lunging and reverse lunging. So we move through the legs. We really feel that reach through the thigh tissues and feeling the low back stretch. So before we shift out of these lunge patterns, please take a moment to reach the back heel towards the floor. Connect the layers of sensation through your back calf. You might have to have the feet so they're in a little bit of a spacing, so you're on 2 tracks. And let that back, the whole back zone restore here. So my blocks could go up. This sure feels better for me. Yeah, and if my neck is having some challenges with this, feel where you're distributing your strength in your inner arms. Try to do the best that you can to find your line from your back heel through the back, all the way into your back muscles, right? Feel that reach. Doesn't have to be that serious, but it is a serious sensation all through. Now, as you bend the right knee, feel the back heel. Try to kind of squizzle. I don't know what the word would be. Squiggle the foot back. Squiggle. Okay, so take a bolster. You might have to get onto your knee to get this bolster across. It depends on your how you're feeling about the bolster getting it there. So I'm going to tuck it under my leg. And then when I lower down my left knee to my blankie, I'm going to start to walk my right foot, toe, heel, and move it into an extended, open pigeon pose, right? So I'm in a sleeping pigeon pose, right? So I'm trying to keep that thigh externally rotated on the right leg. Now, for those of us in pigeon, we'll move our arms forward and down, either on the blocks. If you have an extra bolster, that would be good for this too. Or blankets, that's a little softer than the blocks under your elbows. Okay, let's say the pigeon is too much of a tenderness in your knee. Okay, if that's happening, then you might come around to seated, cross-legged, right leg forward of left, and lean forward to your capacity and have blocks under your hand. So that's a variation you can use instead of the knee over and the weight of the body, the actual core body pushing into the thigh. This is different, but same, right? It's different balance points in your joints, but it's getting to the same stuff. So I find this to be helpful. Well, they're both good. You can try a little of each and notice what you find helpful, especially if you can do both, right? You might come around to sitting and see what you feel with that, and then take some notes. We can compare. Okay, now feeling where that right thigh is stretching deeper. Keep it simple. And now I want to carry us into a pretty intermediate seated twist here. So when we lean our weight into our right thigh band, whether you're seated upright already or we're going to meet you there. You're going to lean into this right cheek. So I'm really kind of rolling into it. And I'm going to carefully move my left leg and cross it over my right leg. Okay. So depending on knee abilities right now, this might work out for some to sit in a simple cross-legged position, but it's not so simple if the knee is healing. If that's happening in your knee, you might bring your right leg straight and either cross it over, the left leg crosses over the right, or do the best you can with that crossing. It might be inside or might be outside. Okay. Important piece here. I've got a sandbag, and it's on my right thigh. So I'm going to tuck it in there, pack in some sand on my right thigh to help turn it out, and then bring my right elbow to my left outer knee and take a block behind me and help my ribs and my belly get that work, right? So my pelvic floor tone is a part of this pose too. So I'm kind of gripping into the midline. Okay. Find where you can start understanding the workings of a seated twist, feeling the right arm pressing, and if it's a lot in the shoulder, you can hold the leg too, like you're hugging your leg into you. Okay, trying to work on strengthening my upper back with the elbow pressing and stretching it. So feel where you're not quite to the edge of your twist, where you're backing off a little bit, resistance. Maybe let the right arm go straight. And then feel where you're working your core up towards your brain, and maybe let your head nod a little bit. Try to relax around the base of the brain. Breathing. There's always further to go on a spinal twist from seated position, always further. So feel what you can embrace about it, the strengthening pieces. Now, before you go out of this pose, before you swipe it from the practice here, if you can let your sitting bones try to press down, and then start to come out of it by pressing into your sitting bones, and then feel as you unwind. So I'm going to move my block over to the side. I'm going to come forward, and I'm going to uncross my leg and put my feet together in bound angle or butterfly pose. It's a happier way of saying this one. Feet together. And actually lean forward. So my hands could hold onto my ankles. My hands could be on my inner lower bones of the legs. They could be towards the floor or a block. Try to let the inner thighs actually stretch here. You can always come into more of a diamond shape, your feet a little farther forwards and lean down. So go a little fuller so you have evenness in your back. Breathe. It only helps. Now we'll take our shape for the second pigeon side, right? So my left leg is the dominating leg, and my right leg would stretch back. Now I pause there because some of us are going to take the seated cross-legged. So if you're going to take the pose seated, your left leg is crossed forward to the right, and you lean forward, right? You could have some weight onto your left leg, but not if you're back in pigeon, right? That would be a little unsettling on your spine. You'd probably say, hey, what's up there? What are you doing to me? So if you're seated, that's helping actually ground the pelvis and root the pelvis so that your spine kind of grows up out of it. So if I'm in pigeon pose, I'm going to bring my elbows down, either to blocks, bolster, or if you have a blanket, this is good to have a little bit of height ratio under your elbows. This is comforting to have the support. Yeah, and the pigeoneers that are in this practice, you can let the back leg bend. Try to feel where your hip points are, where you're aiming your hip points. And let the arms center and your spine stretch, which means observing the law of the brain going forward. That's it, right? Brain goes forward, spine stretches. We try to be simple. Okay, a few more moments. Feel where the hip, feel where the legs respond. And breathing focus. This is about the time in the practice where it can wander, if it hasn't already, a few times into distraction. So come back to the breath. Trying to master a little bit of self-care. Now feel where your left hip weight is. We're coming up. If you're already seated up, we'll join you. And we'll cross that right leg over the left. Okay. And I place a sand on the left thigh. I think the sand is important. Right? It's grounding. It's almost immediate for the left buttock, isn't it? It's almost right away. It feels the support. And then my back tissues have to work extra challenging now to keep my core organs moving towards my back body versus slumping, right? So I'm trying to work with the sand to really help get me aware to lift up. And then I place a block behind. And then as I turn to the right, you'll want to feel, that block, you might position it so you know about where your sacrum is, and then back and down. Yeah, I could use my block a little higher on this side, it feels like. So my left elbow hooks to the right leg. Yeah, and whichever shoulder you have some tissue issues with, this is a great one to stabilize at the tendons, the tendency. So I'm going to try to keep my neck supported here and my head turned just a little bit. If you don't like to involve your neck with this one, let your eyes close and feel what's comfortable. Maybe it's turning your head to center and a little bit back. We're trying to get some strength in our upper back and also in the muscles that bind around the shoulders. Sometimes they are prone to injury or from weakness, right? So I think it's important to feel some of that going on. All while you're twisting and massaging your organs, your kidneys, the wings of your kidneys. Feel 3 more breaths. You got to come up with a structure somehow. And now as you slide the block from behind you to the side, take time, and as you feel your sitting bone center, like you're trying to lift your ribs and you're coming out of the position. Now these ribs are going to pop up. We're going to have a little rib pop up. So sliding the sand. Okay, uncross the legs, shake them out if that feels good. Or tap them out. Sometimes that's a bit of shaking them out. Okay, fist or full hand. Okay. Now this whole area in the front's going to go the other direction. It's going to go down towards the core, right? So if I have my blanket stuck behind, I'm going to kind of push it back. And if I bend the knees and come into my first real inversion today, I'm going to lean down so my elbows are close to the bolster. Now that's my arm length that works for that, not everybody. So when you lower back, I would have my blocks nearby. I never know when I'm not walking for sure. I think I know, but sometimes it changes. If you have a little ball, place that near your side of your bolster. And then dive on back, dive her down. Here we go. So our head is on blanket and our spine is in the center position so the ribs pop out. Right? So that's the key here for where we just were twisting. Since we were just twisting, right, this might be nice to feel what it's like on your back. Just go right into a little side to side knees. No big deal, no goal in mind. Just kind of smush around a little bit in your back and let your eyes close top to bottom. And just feel, is it easier on your back than it is when you're seated, when you're twisting? It's different. I prefer it, but it's a different type of strengthening. I find they're both good, and I wouldn't want to leave seated twist out of my yoga diet, even though it's tempting. Okay, but it's pretty lazy, right? So you want to get a feel of doing twists in general. Just do them. Regulate the circulation in your digestive tract. Okay, more than just with food. Okay, so we'll stay here for a moment. We're going to bring the right knee into the chest. The left leg stretches straight down. So feel the top of the left thigh lengthen by pushing into your left heel. It doesn't do everything for your left thigh, but we're stretching the side of the back on the right. Now breathe into the right side of your colon, right? Your leg is drawing in, squeezing into that colonic atmosphere, huh? Pretty true. And now when we change sides, left leg in, right leg down. Feel that squeeze and emphasize the back of the leg being held, because that's the larger part of the thigh, right? Right, versus to the knee, right? So you're trying to get that part, the leg is drawing to the left side of your waist, to the left colon, descending colon. And now as I start to move my right foot in, I'm going to bring both knees in, okay? And I'll take my sand and place it across my ribs. Wiggle a little bit wriggle so that you feel the back of your pelvis very truly on the bolster. So there might be one, maybe two ribs that are also ascending. So you have a chest opening pose too. So I bring the sand to the soles of my feet. You might get it to the feet over the knees or behind the knees. As the feet are up, open the chest. Yeah. If you have a couple sandbags, this is when you might divvy them up. Get a little bit on each, the ribs and the feet. And especially if your practice is kind of so-so these days, notice your knees, if they're starting to get closer on this pose to an X-leg pattern. Really try to flex your feet. Okay, if your knees get a little closer, if you flex them, then I want you to have a little space. So you could use the ball, right? But you'd have to start with it, I suppose. Boy, I bet you started with it. It's hard to get it there after you got your feet up with the sand. But that ball would give you something to have some resistance with your pelvic floor as well. So if you're going to try using the ball, start over, run the ball so it's center of the thighs, scoop up the sand. Might as well make this an event today. Okay, this piece of the sequence. So it's pretty challenging, right, to have that ball, I have to admit. But it's helping me set up for the pose, which is I'm going to remove it at some point. I'll just pop it through. Okay. So keep in awareness of your stability. Feel the legs pretty charged now. Okay, squeezing if you have that. Arms are open, cactus shape. Okay, give yourself a few moments to tolerate this idea. If you don't like it anytime, pop the ball through anytime. Okay? It gives you some awareness of the muscles in the legs, how they work with this response. I popped mine through. I don't have it anymore. So I'm working with simplicity, reversing the gravitational flow to my heart, to my lungs, and eyes closed top to bottom. Breathe in belly. Exhale out of your mouth. It's obvious, but it's sometimes nice to have that guided thought in your brain. There's plenty of thoughts that will kind of try to take up focus. So try to keep it very simple-minded. And now a few more breaths. Maintain the reach of the feet, the flex of the feet. This could be a 5 to 20 minute pose. It would be healthy to do that. The only time where you might notice it is if you need to get out is if you lose sensation in your feet, right? If they tingle and they go to sleep, that's a sign, let's get out of this. It's no longer therapeutic. But at least you know you drained all the fluid from the legs, but your blood pressure is 0 in your feet at that point. Now, as you bend your knees, we're going to lower down our sand, whether we toss it overhead or we carefully put it down besides ourselves. All right, now let's keep the legs in kind of a free space. They kind of can wander side to side or in towards you. And notice what feels the best for them, in to you or to the sides to side. A moment here. Now this changes my lung volume when I'm on my back. You can probably hear the difference in lungs. It's quite dense, right, as far as the strengthening. So back breathing is good. Try to breathe on your back, deep breaths when you're here. Strengthen your lungs. Okay, now with the diaphragm in a position that makes it easier to exhale and lengthen your exhale, that is. You're gonna exhale regardless. Knees to chest, so the hips pop up And then we're going to bring our hands to the bolster and push it forwards. Okay. So now my feet are on the bolster, and I'm going to actually nudge it forward with my fingers. So I can't nudge it anymore. Pushing down, lifting hips. Keep the hips lifting, hips lifting. Now if you have a block or a ball, place it between the knees. If you have no idea where those props are, don't worry about it. Focus on your legs working, your hips strengthening, and then lower your spine down slow. Let this final set be very pure, focused on releasing your back. So when you push into your feet, you're moving up the spine with decompression. But when I push down to my feet, I'm compressing, right? So as I lift my arms overhead, keep reaching, hips going towards the ceiling, and then lower the spine down. You can tell how having a block between the knees could be useful in this one, or a ball. You can tell that could be helpful for concentration and where you don't have to put the energy into it, it's there, so you'll squeeze it anyway. Okay, now for all of us considered here, I want you to try to lift the hips up and then take the block, wherever it is, place it under the back of the pelvis, and I want you to try to let your body relax into that block and feeling just the circulation change in the hips by having a block underneath. It's pretty simple, just like the bolster was. But completely relax the efforting that you're putting into your gripping leg muscles. I want you to feel the circulation dynamic, and that's simply all it is. So sure, you could put your block a little higher. If it pinches in your spine, it doesn't seem to be a very smart idea, but if it's easy for you to put the block on the next level, that's fine. Arms resting by the sides. Shoulders back naturally, nothing too artistic about it, feeling. Most of this is a physical phase that you're in this morning, a physical phase of reorienting the spaces inside you. How grateful they're probably feeling. And now push down, notice the muscles that respond in your glutes. Relax the pressure. Push down into your feet. Lift up the hips a tad. Slide the block over. And then as we prep ourselves for our twist, we're going to lower spine all the way to the very base. Okay, now once you feel the feet push, and then relax their effort, let's bring our knees in and give a little bit of a squeeze of the knees or the back of the legs. Reach a foot to your bolster, kick it to the right side yard, the side yard of where you're at, and right leg down, left leg crosses to the bolster. Okay, if you have a ball, you can place that in the sacrum. If you have a block, it works too. And it's just a little bit more jagged, right? But it brings direction to your hip. Sand on left outer thigh. Try to let the sand be actually attached to your hip structure, tad bit. Right? So the sand feels like it's supporting your hip structure. It's weight bearing. All right, so right arm is, or left arm, sorry, is open. Feel the chest turn. Okay, feel where your spine is rotating. And your chest is expanding and the ribs widen. Yeah, if your left foot is relaxed, that would be ideal. You need a blanket on top of your bolster. to ease the twist, take blanket. That's when you need a break. You say, I'm going to take blanket. Okay, so feeling and reaching through the midsection. Just practicing pausing with the breath. Really let your body process and absorb the pose. Now with a few more moments here, noticing anything that you could fine tune. Maybe fine tuning for you is accepting, letting go. So that as much of the stretch stays in your back space. When we move our sand off that left thigh, feel that back space on the left hip stretch. If you've got a ball or block, move it away from the sacrum. And then when you roll back, you're going to move the bolster to left side, knees to chest, move it over. Okay, my left side is a little more open than my right, I notice, so I'm going to make sure that on this other side I have the same, is as exact as I could be on how far over my bolster is, but keeping the awareness that each side is different. Ball or block to the sacrum. Sand on right thigh. Each side is quite different, right, as far as its evenness, perhaps. So honoring where you're at, big time. Okay, so feel where the weight of that leg, now that there's some 10 more pounds on it, it kind of helps you feel like you can stretch your back. Only in the yoga pose, right? With that weight on your leg. Arm open, head rolls right, maybe. You know, we're all individual with how we're going to treat the neck here. So it might do you well to let your head rest. We're in the final couple poses right here. So give yourself the space to complete the practice if possible. Now fine tune how that right leg crosses over. The more ambition you have on moving the leg, it could cause some pressure in your lower back. So I would say let it just be however you ended up instead of trying to move deeper, accepting. And the whole back space, we want to feel supported at the last pose. So I'll give a couple options for that. Now let's say you feel like you want to get your legs drained a little more. You might take legs up the wall next. You might find a wall space, get a bolster under your pelvis. And so the legs are actually all the way attached to the wall, supported. Those of us that want to stay with the center and go into bolster bench, we'll bring our right knee in. And you might stay with that direction since you're already turned. Maybe move your ball or block away. And then cuddle your knees to the side. And then come up and stack up your bolster on some blocks. 2 blocks, second setting, bolster, blanket. And give it a little bit of time here. And we're right on the edge of it, but give it the time. You can make it for another minute here. So place the bolster supporting your calves with a blankie. Now, if you're a wall legs person, we'll let you find your wave of support with the wall. And the rest of us right here. Legs have separation, sand across ribs. If you choose to have no sand, no worries, right? The sand could be on belly. The sand could be on ribs. Belly feels good. Arms resting, toes twinkling. Heels floating and toes dozing. Select a place to bring focus, whether it's belly or heart, and feel the breath designated in that space moving. Either space could be moving with breath. Now, if you're pretty active with the belly movement with breath, massage the organs, feeling the stomach, walls of the stomach. Let the legs rest and receive. Any pulsing in your feet may have gone away by now. We've spent a very thorough 75 plus minutes working on our footprint a little bit here and there. So just scanning the feeling in your lower legs. Let them go. Feel your pelvis and let that weight be complete. And feel your ribs expanding. Take a moment with your arms open. Feel the spine centered, the chest widen, and broaden the ribs. Receiving and processing this practice, the circulation, the mental focus on self-care. Feel the slowest breath you can. Exhale out of the mouth. Feel the natural arch in the spine along with the belly moving. Now we'll start to move our sand away and our legs connecting to the core adore of the waist. So feel the feet in a little bit of circling or kind of toes flicking a little bit. And then when you mobilize your pelvis, your tailbone, that presses down. And then I bring a knee at a time in. Yeah, and feel that, how your knee at a time goes in, how your back elongates. Stay with that for just a couple seconds here. Feel the knees in. Rock side to side. Rock over, hands to floor, sitting up. Take a simple cross-legged, either on blanket or on firm ground. And let's line up our hearts below the brain and feel the hands merge in unity and the brain resting and bowing into the heart. Gathering our attention on the breath to unite our focus, honoring your commitment to your practice. Inhale slow. Exhale, bowing into your heart. In gratitude, namaste.